Alright, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, my totally epic, awesome, always entertaining channel. I've just made coffee and I just finished setting up all this stuff. I got this webcam up here, I got a microphone right here, I got this blue snowball. Doesn't matter, spent like an hour doing it. And here we are, and all just to be another person on the internet to talk about obsession, which is a little ridiculous, but I'm here, I'm doing it because I really like the movie, and I think that the debate online is kind of wild, and people are so passionate and excited about it. It's just, I mean, it's fun, and so I thought I would do it as well while I drink coffee and talk to you guys about my theories. So I'm gonna do this in a style where I'm gonna go through each of the four kind of main characters. I mean, Bear's the main character, kind of, but like that's the person that we see the movie through. Like he's the narrator. But the four characters, the friend group, the coworkers, whatever, the trivia monsters, whatever you want to call them, they're like the main cast, and we're gonna go through them. Obviously, starting with Bear because he's again kind of the person we see this all through. Like his eyes, we see the movie through his eyes. And then we have Nikki, and Nikki is kind of just an innocent bystander to the movie, unfortunately. I mean, not like unfortunately from a movie perspective, more like unfortunately from a perspective that it's like a heartbreaking movie to like what happens to Nikki and like Nikki's story and character arc and stuff. It's kind of just sad, and so that's unfortunate. But we do get to see like the real Nikki a little bit in the beginning of the movie, and then like for a little bit at the end, like a few seconds maybe, and then like maybe a couple seconds throughout the movie. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I was just like running before I came here. Not like a fun exercise, like getting healthy kind of running, like running because I was really excited to have coffee and have this thing set up. So I'm out of breath. Sorry. Anyway, then we're gonna talk about Sarah, who I think is criminally under talked about because she's fucking. There's a whole thing there, and I'm gonna talk about. And then finally, fourth is Ian. Problem is, outside of Bear, the other three just didn't get as much screen time as Bear did, and so while we can make like tons of analysis around Bear, the other three it's kind of hard. It's a lot of speculative stuff, just because they're not really on screen as much. But we're going to talk about them anyway, and we're going to get speculative and theorize. So let's talk about Bear. Bear's like the big talking point online, like as far as discussion goes. He's the one that's like, everyone, they either think he's like the root of all evil, like Satan himself, or people seem to think he's like this like innocent victim of, the events of the movie, which is, I think either one are kind of off, but saying that he's innocent is like so far off to me, like from when you watch the movie. Like if you watch the movie and finish it and then like your takeaway was like, I don't think Bear did anything wrong. It's just like a weird, I feel like you just like weren't watching the movie in that case, because there's a lot of instances, man. However, I would say though, I don't really fully agree on one side that he's like the root of all evil kind of guy, which is honestly like a big talking point as far as like the controversy that I think for me, where I just don't really agree with either side 100%, is that like that group is often saying like Bear's this misogynist incel. And I think the issue is like really, at least the way I saw the movie, was that Bear is just an incel. See, because you can't be both. Like, an incel is like someone, and I did look this up, like definition. An incel is someone who's like infatuated and in love with someone, but they can't like actually express themselves in any meaningful way to the world or to the person that they're in love with. And so they just kind of get rejected and frustrated, and definitely could eventually turn into this misogynist. They just grow to like hate women or the person that they're trying to get with. A misogynist is just straight up like just hates women. They want harm on women. They enjoy inflicting harm on women. They hate women. That's a misogynist. And I just didn't think that that's what Bear was. I didn't think that even by the end of watching it, even after all the horrible things he does, I didn't ever get the vibe that he like actively hated Nikki or wanted harm on Nikki. I don't even necessarily fully agree with the sentiment that he wanted to replace Nikki. Like he was happy that the Wish replaced Nikki. I don't think so. I think he was just so far down in Delulu land, right? That like he genuinely thought like this real person could actually have feelings for him in the way that he was doing it. And I mean, that's an incel. That's someone who is like has this very vivid fantasy in their mind and no way to bridge the gap between that fantasy and the real world. And that's Bear. I mean, that's Bear's character is this very incel person. And by the end of the movie, obviously the supernatural elements have Bear being kind of an unconsenting party to the events as much as Nikki was. The big difference is, and then where it's like the debate is just kind of weird, is that like Bear did that. Like, yeah, sure, by the end, Bear is unconsensually along for the ride, just like, just like we all were, right? But just like how we bought a ticket to be in the theater, like Bear made decisions and did things to put himself in a situation where he was an unconsensual passenger to the furthering events. And that's where it's like, well, Nikki is pretty innocent, and honestly completely innocent from my perspective of the movie. Bear just isn't. Bear made these horrible decisions and built up this isolated, echo chamber that he constantly chooses also. Like in the movie, it's pretty spelled out. It's like he chooses Ian as his best friend, who is just a horrible friend, even though given his like kind of delicate mental state and like awkwardness, he still chooses to be in the friend zone from Nikki. Like, I mean, as we all know, it's like living in the real world. It's like you're gonna get friend zoned at one point, and that's totally fair. People are allowed to, you can be friend zoned. It's healthy to, be like, we're just friends. But it's at the end of the day, it's your choice to like, and your responsibility, I would even say, to like look at yourself and be like, can I actually move on from these feelings I have from someone and be like a genuine friend to them? Or is that going to be like a problem? Am I going to be setting myself up to be like Bear? And that's the part where I do understand people empathizing with Bear to a certain extent, is that it's a real situation. We've all had to look ourselves in the mirror at one point or another and ask ourselves, are we being, the bad guy? Are we being insecure? Are we denying inner feelings that, that is going to end up setting us on the bad course? And we have to get real with ourselves all the time. Now, obviously, most of us, though, don't make decisions like Bear does, where again, he chooses shitty friends. He chooses to live in the friend zone when his temperament and psyche clearly wasn't ready for something like that. He does it anyway. And it's just all kinds of messed up. And that's why it's like Bear is not an innocent victim or even a victim of any kind, even though it's unconsensual for him as well by the end. Doesn't he's guilty. He did it. It's like, even if it is true that he built himself a prison in his own mind, it doesn't change the fact that you built the prison, bro. And you're kind of too far up shit creek to really turn it around. And in the movie, we see at the end, there's really only one option for him ahead, and that's to, off himself, which he can't even follow through on that. And again, that only builds into my theory that Bear is unconsensually like along for that journey. And that's where, again, I kind of disagree with him being like a misogynist, like serpent of the earth kind of character. I do think that he's a human character, a real character, that just made horrible decisions. And I would argue that even like at the beginning of the movie, like the opening shot, Bear had already built himself that prison, and it was already too late for him to really turn things around in any meaningful way, because again, he had chosen to put himself in this horrible situation with a horrible psyche. He had given himself no tools. He had developed no like social tools, or he wasn't going to therapy kind of thing. Like he wasn't helping himself in any way. That by the time the first shot of the movie happens, Bear was already completely at the mercy of the events of the movie. In my opinion, that's kind of how I got his character. He's such a coward and just so incapable of expressing himself that he was stuck in his own inner torture of his mind. And obviously, as we see in the movie, it results terribly, and where he hurts tons of people around him and quite literally gets them all killed. Well, I mean, I'm theorizing a little bit there as far as Nikki, which, speaking of which, let's talk about Nikki, right? I love coffee, also, by the way. Nikki is a tragic story, and arguably what I would consider like the real main character. Like, she's the character we're all kind of rooting for. Obviously, like, that gets complicated through the movie because she's also like, her physical presence is being used to inflict all the terror of the movie. So it's like, I understand it gets complicated, but like the real Nikki is who we're all kind of really rooting for, I think. I mean, she's innocent. She did nothing wrong. And I mean, the poor girl literally just wanted to go home. And that's like all she did to set these events in motion. And, it's just such an innocent, like, moment. And then obviously in the end, we have that gut wrenching scene where she's just surrounded by the carnage of it all. And for me, that scene is particularly heartbreaking because that's when I fully, like, in the theater, like, when I first fully realized that I had no idea who Nikki was. Like, I didn't. We don't know what her dreams are. I have no idea. Like, was she deep into writing? Like, was that like her lifelong dream, or did she like just pick that up last week? Was she actually into Ian, or was there like someone in her life that she was in love with? Like, did she even have a family? Did she have a car? Why was she switching jobs? Like, we had no idea who Nikki was, and for me, that end scene just really like punctuated that feeling of like realization. It's like this we've literally watched this woman on screen for like 2 hours and we have no idea who she is, and that's just, and but we know her life is over, and that just is terrible. I mean, it was just gut wrenching and horrible for her to like finally, that's like when she finally actually takes the true main character like framing, right? Bear's gone and now it's just her, and it's like we finally get to actually follow her as the main character, and it's just so fucked by the time we finally do that. It's just heartbreaking. And unfortunately, that's kind of all we can say about Nikki. Because again, from my perspective at least, the real Nikki's just not on screen hardly enough to really make any big assumptions about like her life or anything. The only thing I could say that I wish Nikki had done differently, but that like it's just retrospectively, like after I've watched the movie, I just really wish she had just told Bear that she was sleeping with Ian. I just feel like that maybe would have subverted some of like what happened in the movie. But again, it's like how would she know that that there's I don't even know. She wasn't obligated to do that in any way, and she certainly didn't owe it to Bear to like tell him that. It's just like after watching the movie, sometimes I just wish she did, and maybe we wouldn't have had to go through all that. But I mean, God. But yeah, I mean, that's literally the only thing I can think of that Nikki might have been able to do differently, and that maybe would have gotten a better result, like for her at least. Um, but yeah, I mean, she just didn't do anything wrong. I mean, it was totally the whole time. It was just Bear and the friends, just and Ian. Is primarily who I'm thinking of, just making a fucking mess of it, and leaving Nikki to hold the damn bag. It sucks. So let's move on to the third character, Sarah. Sarah, I just think, yeah, okay. I almost thought for a second I wasn't recording this whole time. I was like, what the fuck? Anyway, Sarah is like a character that kind of just gets brushed under the carpet a lot, I feel like, when talking about the movie. But to me, I perceived her as an incel as well, just like Bear. I mean, from my perspective of the movie, she and Bear were basically the same, like in the same psychological space. um, I think if the One Wish Willow had found Sarah before it found Bear, I think we would have watched an eerily similar movie, just with Bear in Nikki's place and Sarah in Bear's place. Because the thing that really proved it for me was the car scene, like kind of Sarah's final scene. That happened right after the party scene, like the poem thing, the she a suicide attempt, the like freaking out and being like it's not me. That's right after like Sarah's literally the one that Nikki scooted like out of the way for whatever fucking shenanigans her and Bear were up to. Like from Sarah's perspective, that's what that looks like. Sarah also, like in my opinion, kind of just had this like blatant disrespect for their relationship, even when it was supposed to be perceived as like a normal relationship. She just didn't seem to like care, which I get that she might have felt wrong from Nikki, because she was confessing that she had feelings for Bear to Nikki. But still, it's like, I don't know. It was at the time, it should have been a normal relationship. And I just felt like she was just kind of disrespectful of that. And again, the kind of thing I'll go back to, not to be missed, the like real moment is when again she just like not even 12 hours after that party scene, she's like hitting up Bear and being like, you better come see me or I'm coming to you. And it's like, what are we doing? It's a crazy thing to do. If that were me, like I would never, I would literally, like if I were friends with Bear, or like I worked with this guy and Nikki, and then they started doing whatever the fuck that was. Like, if I even managed to get to the party scene, that literally would have been it. You would never hear from me again. You would never see me again. I would be so far fucking gone from anything around you that like you would know. There's not a chance I'm gonna be like pressure you into coming meeting me in a fucking parking lot. Not a shot. And I just think that like speaks to Sarah, like where she's at. I mean, she's like deeply in love with Bear, just as Bear was with Nikki. And that I think she was also really deep into her own prison, her own little echo chamber, just like Bear was. And I think those two are eerily similar. And that'll kind of push us to the fourth character, Ian, which again, unfortunately, just isn't on screen nearly enough to like really make any big assumptions. But, from what we did see, it's pretty safe to say the guy's a narcissist, right? I mean, this guy is thinking about him all the time. That's in his wish. That's in the way that he handles conversations. Again, for mentioning, if now, whereas before I said Nikki, like it would have been nice had she told Bear that she was hooking up with Ian. Ian, like, was obligated to tell Bear that he was hooking up with Nikki because Bear was convinced, or like, well, what the hell, admitting that he like had feelings about Nikki to Ian, and Ian just like nothing, never even brought up the fact that it's like, oh yeah, bro, I'm sleeping with her casually for like a year. So stupid. I mean, he's such a bad guy. He's just trying to save himself, whatever the awkward situation or whatever it is he's trying to save himself. Just totally selfish. And then obviously his wish is just kind of self-centered too. And I think that, Ian really was like a narcissist and just kind of playing that situation to his advantage, trying to get what he can out of it. And that's one thing that I will say is I wonder if we had gotten more screen time with Nikki, I wonder if Nikki would have ended up being similar to Ian. Like, I wonder if the dynamic was the two incels and then these two narcissists, and it was like that's that dynamic of that friend group. Sometimes I almost get the impression that maybe that's what's going on, but again, we never really get the screen time of all of them together or even separately to really decide that. And Nikki just comes across pretty damn innocent in the movie. I do think there's room for that to maybe be like how it was playing out, but at the same time, just given the context of the movie, there's really no way to say. That's just kind of a theory, a movie theory now. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. I think at the end of the day, the movie kind of plays that way. You got this narcissist in Ian who really fucking catalyst stuff just by either not saying things when he needed to or saying the wrong things when he really just should have shut the fuck up. But that's kind of how it is. And then you got these two incels, Bear and Sarah. And I think that's why part of why the movie hits is that those are real archetypes of today's age. I mean, it's terrible to say, and I think we all wish that the world was brighter, but the reality of it is that like that's things people struggle with today. People struggle to connect, people struggle to express themselves in meaningful ways. And I think that if you're seeing like empathy towards Bear or anything like that, I've had to kind of like, because at first I was really put off by that, but then eventually I kind of realized it's just people who have had similar struggles, and is kind of maybe unpleasant it can be to think about like that. Yeah, regular people deal with things and feelings and thoughts like Bear does or Sarah does. It's a reality, and I think that's why the movie is hitting, and I think that's why people are enjoying debating it, talking about it, is because at the end of the day, these are very like current human stories, and unfortunately, just cranked up to 100 with The Wish. And I mean, Bear being kind of an exceptionally bad person, he's pretty deep. I've definitely met people that like have an unhealthy crush, or you know I don't know, or like a Discord mod, but Bear is definitely something special. It's definitely played up to be a particularly bad person, and I've heard the script is even worse. Like the Bear we saw on screen was kind of the vague-ish character, which is still pretty black and white. Whereas then, I mean, in the original script, I've heard that Bear is just frankly atrocious, or at least it's much more obvious of how atrocious he is. Because again, I don't want to downplay the fact that he was horrible in the movie. I mean, he truly disturbed me. The first time I watched it, I just couldn't. I was cringing every time he was on screen, and that's not anything to do. That's not hate on the actor. He's a very good-looking guy and stuff like that, but he plays that role of just that kind of sniveling, like, I don't even know, just awkward person so well that it's like, and again, cranked up to 100, it's like this caricature of an incel, of someone who doesn't get out and touch grass nearly enough. And I mean, it's my take on obsession. Hopefully, this isn't going to get me crucified in the comment section or anything. I don't think I said anything that crazy. Yeah, I don't think I said anything that crazy. Um, Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are if you liked it or not. Probably gonna do another movie, or maybe a song or something. Make a video on that. I'm just gonna try to make videos talking about stuff because I'm passionate about all this stuff. I like talking about it. I'll spend hours like watching videos on movies and music and games and just random shit. And then it's like I just never that just lives in my brain. I just like go to bed and like, cool, man. Figure what the hell. Start putting an extra hour in and make it a video on the internet where I can talk to you guys, hopefully at least. So, anywho, I am, yeah, bye now.